Ambassador John Bolton. Ambassador, just tell me, what did you make of today and what you saw?
Well, it was a disaster for American national security. We saw the president and the vice president emotionally committed to being on the Russian side of this. And I think it spells disaster for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. I think it's a signal to treaty allies of the United States all around the world that Trump has divorced himself from the foundations of American foreign policy since 1945. Many of his supporters would applaud that. But that is a disaster for the United States. The Europeans can't do this themselves. They can talk about it all they want, but they need a United States led by somebody who understands what its own interests are. Trump is consumed with the idea that Zelensky and Ukraine conspired against him in the 2016 election. I could read you a few excerpts from my book, taking out the words I can't repeat on television that Trump said repeatedly about Zelensky. And on the other side, he thinks Vladimir Putin is his friend. This is going not just in the wrong direction, this is going in the wrong direction catastrophically fast with implications globally for our system of alliances.
We just heard from Secretary Rubio in our interview. I was told it was Rubio and Mike Waltz, who has your former job as the national security advisor, who were the ones who went to tell Zelensky that he had to leave the White House. Even though Ukrainians wanted to stay and talk, Trump decided there was not time to negotiate, or this wasn't the time to continue that. What would you have done? Were you in that job?
Well, I might have carried out the order, but I would have resigned thereafter. I must say, watching Marco on your show the first half hour was very sad for me, very sad. He's been a strong defender of a vigorous American foreign policy in the wider world, which keeps us safer at home. And yet he talked about how hard it is to get the poor Russian regime to the table to negotiate. One reason it's getting harder to get the Russians to negotiate is that Donald Trump is giving them everything they want. And remember what kind of regime in Moscow we're talking about, Marco. This is the regime that backs Ortega in Nicaragua. It's the regime that backs Maduro in Venezuela. It's the regime that backs the post-Castro regime in Cuba, Marco. That's the Russia we're talking about.
When you listened to what he said, did you agree with any of the points that he made in terms of not talking ill of Putin because that's not helpful as a negotiation is being done?
Come on, let's get our big boy pants on here. Vladimir Putin is one of the cold-bloodedest individuals I've ever met. He knows what the back and forth means. It's not that he's timid about coming to the table. He doesn't need to. Trump's got the flood running in his direction. He just needs to sit there and get more. This is the exact opposite of the way to negotiate with Putin. The Russians, I can tell you from arms control negotiations beyond counting, are better than anybody else at taking concessions, putting them in their pocket, and then saying, what have you got for me now? That's what they're doing in the Kremlin tonight.
It was a remarkable day, Ambassador John Bolton, one for the history books, that's for sure. Thank you for joining to share your perspective tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all so much.